Hello, this is the video tutorial for the Moving Straight Ahead Study Guide, parts 1 through 3, and this is for numbers 5 through 8. Again, as mentioned in the last video and we learned in class, that for number 5 or any of the numbers, the slope is the number that appears before the x, or you can think of it as the number that's being multiplied against the x. So for number 5, y equals 0.25x, the slope would be 0.25. The y-intercept is the number that's being added to the equation, and in this case, there's nothing being added, so our y-intercept would be 0. For number 6, y equals x minus 14. Again, the slope is the number that's being multiplied against the x, or the number that's before the x. Now here, again, when you have x by itself, or any letter for that matter, it's always assumed that it's being multiplied by 1. So for the slope for this problem, it would be 1. The y-intercept, y equals x minus 14. The y-intercept is what's being added to the problem. But here we have subtract, it says subtract 14, so nothing's being added. So we got to look at the problem a little differently if you aren't already able to see what the y-intercept is. When you subtract a number, it's the same thing as adding a negative. So adding a negative is the same thing as subtracting. So what is actually being added to this problem? What's being added? Negative 14. So our y-intercept would be negative 14. All right, number 7 states y equals negative 8x plus 8. And again, the slope is the number that's being multiplied against the x, or the number that's before the x. And when you look at the number, you've got to include the sign as well. So the number before the x here is negative 8, not just plain old 8. So our slope would be negative 8. Again, our y-intercept is what's being added to the equation. So y equals negative 8x plus 8. The plus 8, that's what's being added. So 8 is being added to the problem, so our y-intercept is 8. Number 8 reads y equals 17. And our slope is what's being multiplied against the x. Well, I don't even see an x here, so we've got to think of this a different way. Now, once you start getting in the habit of this, you're not going to have to do what I'm about to show you, but this is how you have to initially think about it. Number 8 can be thought of as, instead of y equals 17, it's y equals 0x plus 17, because 0 times anything is going to wipe it out anyway. It would become 0, which would just leave us with y equals 17. So now we can look at the slope. If there's a 0 before the x, the slope would be 0. So eventually, hopefully you're not going to have to rewrite it or think of it this way. You'll just realize that there is nothing there in terms of x. So you would have a 0 slope. And again, the y-intercept is what's being added to the equation. Now if you just look at this, you might get a little confused, but it's up here you can see we're adding 17 to nothing. So when you have just a plain number there, y equals 17, that would be the slope. If that were a negative 17, it would be negative 17. But in this case, y equals 17, 17 was added to the equation. So our y-intercept would be 17. This concludes the video tutorial for numbers 5 through 8 for the Moving Straight Ahead Study Guide, parts 1 through 3.